My sister smiled over cheesecake like she was sharing a harmless family joke. Then she looked at my 10-year-old son and said, "Maybe if he had two parents, he wouldn't be such a mess." Noah pushed his plate away so quietly it hurt more than crying. My mother looked down. My father said, "Ruby, let it go." I almost did. I had spent 4 years swallowing every insult to keep that table peaceful. But that night, I reached into my purse, pulled out the folder my sister had begged me to hide, and watched her face turn white for good. "My name is Ruby, and I learned a long time ago that some families do not need knives to cut you. They use napkins folded neatly beside dinner plates. They use soft voices. They use concern." I was 41 then, a widow, a mother, and a senior loan officer in finance. Not the kind of woman my family imagined when they looked at me. To them, I was still poor Ruby, tragic Ruby, the one who lost her husband and moved into a smaller apartment because life had beaten her down. The truth was quieter than that. My apartment was small because I chose it. 2 bedrooms, warm lamps, second-hand bookshelves. A couch Noah and I had sunk into during 100 Friday movie nights. The kitchen always smelled like coffee in the morning and boxed mac and cheese when he had a hard day. It was not fancy. It was paid for. Every inch of it belonged to me. But my parents never saw that. Margaret, my mother, saw my simple dresses and older car and decided I was struggling. Harold, my father, saw Noah's quiet face and decided the boy needed pity. And my sister Vanessa saw all of it as an opportunity. Vanessa had the big house, the smiling husband, the 2 polished children, Emma and Luke, and the kind of family photos people hang above fireplaces to prove they are happy. Her husband Brian wore expensive watches and talked like every room was a sales meeting. My parents adored them. Every Sunday dinner felt like stepping into a museum where Vanessa was the exhibit and I was the cautionary tale. Before Daniel died, I used to laugh at those dinners. My husband had a way of squeezing my hand under the table when my family got too loud. He made me feel anchored. Then a traffic accident took him in one clean, terrible afternoon. And the world split into before and after Daniel. Everyone treated Noah like a cracked plate, something still usable, but damaged. At home, he was different. He sang badly while pouring cereal. He built Lego cities across the rug. He asked big questions from under his blanket when he should have been sleeping. At my parents' house, he got smaller. He cut his food into tiny squares. He kept both hands in his lap. He smiled only when someone expected it. I told myself Sunday dinners gave him family. I did not realize they were teaching my son how to disappear. The small cuts started before dessert ever did. One Sunday, Vanessa walked into my apartment without taking off her heels, looked around my living room, and said, "It's sweet. Ruby, really, some people need less space." She smiled when she said it, like kindness had just passed through her mouth. But Noah heard it. He was sitting on the rug with a comic book open across his knees, and I watched his shoulders tighten. Another Sunday, Dad slipped a few dollars into Noah's hand and said, "Get yourself something nice, buddy. I know things are tight for your mom." Noah looked at me before he took it. That look hurt more than the money. It asked, "Are we poor? Are you scared? Should I be scared too?" Mom was worse because she dressed judgment up as warmth. She would pat my arm while clearing plates and say, "Vanessa just has a gift for keeping a home together, but you're doing your best, honey." Then she would sigh, soft and heavy, like my best was a sad little thing she had agreed to tolerate. Brian saved his lessons for Noah. "Speak up, kid," he would say, clapping one thick hand on my son's shoulder. "Men don't mumble." Noah would nod and look down. "He's 10. I said once. "Exactly," Brian said, "old enough to start toughening up." I should have stopped it sooner. I know that now, but grief plays tricks on you. It makes you bargain with pain. I told myself Noah needed grandparents. I told myself every family had sharp corners. I told myself I could absorb enough cruelty for both of us. Then, one night, Noah came into my room at 2 a.m., dragging his blue blanket behind him. His hair was messy. His cheeks were wet. "Mom," he whispered, Did Dad die because I wasn't good enough? The room went cold. I pulled him into my arms so fast he dropped to the blanket. I told him no. I told him Daniel loved him more than anything. I told him accidents are not punishments. But even as I held him, I knew where that question had been planted. At the next Sunday dinner, Vanessa came dressed like she was arriving at a country club, cream sweater, gold bracelet, perfume sharp enough to taste. She spent 20 minutes talking about Emma's violin lessons and Luke's soccer coach calling him a natural leader. Then her eyes landed on Noah. "How's math going?" she asked. "I got a B," Noah said softly. "A B," Vanessa repeated, dragging the letter out. "Well, not bad, considering your situation." My fork stopped halfway to my plate. "Vanessa," I said. "Don't." She tilted her head. "I'm only worried. Boys without fathers struggle. Everybody knows that." "Noah is fine." She lifted her spoon, smiling over the cheesecake. "Maybe if your son had 2 parents, he wouldn't be such a mess." Noah pushed his plate away. Dad exhaled and said, "Ruby, let it go." And that was when I stood up. I walked out of the dining room before my hands could betray me. Behind me, Vanessa gave a small laugh. Not a nervous one, a satisfied one. "There she goes," she said. Always so sensitive. The hallway was dim and cool, with my mother's framed family photos lined up along the wall, Vanessa's family in matching sweaters, Emma with a violin, Luke holding a soccer trophy, my parents smiling like they had built something perfect. There was one photo of me, Daniel, and Noah tucked near the end, half hidden behind a ceramic vase. I stared at it for 1 second too long. Daniel's arm was around me. Noah was 4, sitting on his shoulders, laughing with his whole face. Back then, nobody called him quiet. Nobody called him broken. Nobody called him a mess. From the dining room, Dad muttered. "She has to learn not everything is an attack," my mother whispered. "Poor Ruby. She never moved on." And Vanessa said, "Someone had to say it." That was the moment my sadness hardened into something clean. I reached into my purse and touched the folder. 3 months earlier, Vanessa had called me at work during lunch. Her voice had been thin and shaking. Brian was between jobs. She said, their bills had piled up. Their house payment was late. She could not tell Mom and Dad because it would destroy them. "Ruby, please," she whispered. "Just help us through this month. I'll pay you back. And don't tell anyone. I mean it." She sent me the bills herself, the overdue payments, the messages from the lender, the proof that Brian had not left his job by choice. He had been let go after lying about work expenses. I did not dig. I did not snoop. I did not use my position. Vanessa handed me the truth because she needed my money. So I helped, not for her, for Emma and Luke. But I kept every record, because money has a way of turning liars into victims when the bill comes due. Now, my sister had used my son's grief as entertainment over cheesecake. I pulled the folder out. It felt heavier than paper should feel. When I walked back into the dining room, nobody was eating. Noah looked at me with wet eyes. Vanessa leaned back, still smiling. I placed the folder beside her dessert plate, for the first time in 4 years. My sister looked at me like she was afraid of what I knew. Vanessa stared at the folder like it had crawled onto the table by itself. For a second. Nobody moved. The dining room still smelled like roast beef and sugar. The candles my mother had lit before dinner flickered in their glass holders, throwing soft light across the white tablecloth, the silver forks, the half-eaten cheesecake. It looked like a normal family dinner. That was the ugliest part. Vanessa blinked first. What is this supposed to be? I did not sit down. "Open it." She gave a sharp little laugh and looked at Brian, like he was supposed to rescue her from my embarrassment. Brian only leaned back in his chair, one arm draped over it, still wearing that lazy smirk men wear when they think the room belongs to them. "Ruby," Dad said, his voice low, "don't start." I looked at him. No, that is exactly what I should have done years ago. Mom pressed her napkin to her lips. Noah sat frozen beside my empty chair, his small hands clenched in his lap, His plate was still pushed away from him. The cheesecake crust had cracked under his fork. Vanessa rolled her eyes. Fine. She flipped the folder open with 2 fingers. Like touching it disgusted her. The first page was a summary of overdue bills. Her smile twitched. The second page showed payments I had made from my own account over the last 3 months. Her face changed. Not dramatically, not all at once. The color drained slowly, starting around her mouth, then under her cheekbones, until the perfect glow she walked in with turned gray. She paled. Brian leaned forward. Vanessa. She slapped her hand over the papers. I said, "Move your hand." Her eyes snapped up to mine. "How dare you bring this here?" "How dare I?" I repeated. "You mean, how dare I bring the truth to the same table where you just humiliated my son?" Dad pushed his chair back an inch. "Ruby, let it go." I turned to him so fast his mouth closed. "There it is," I said. "The family prayer. Let it go." When Mom called me poor in front of neighbors after Daniel died, let it go. When Vanessa treated my apartment like a charity shelter, let it go. When Brian put his hands on my son and told him to man up, let it go. When Noah stopped laughing at this table, let it go. My voice stayed calm, and somehow that made everyone listen harder. But tonight she called my 10-year-old child a mess because his father is dead. So, no, Dad. I am not letting it go. Noah made a tiny sound behind me. I did not turn around. If I looked at him, I might break. Vanessa shoved the folder toward me. "This is private." "It was private," I said. "Until you decided my son's grief was public entertainment." Brian reached for the folder. "You have no right." I placed my hand flat on top of it. "I have every right to speak about money I paid. Money your wife begged me for. Money she asked me to hide from Mom and Dad because your perfect life was already falling apart." Mom gasped. "What money?" Vanessa shook her head too quickly. "It was nothing, just a short-term cash issue." "A short-term cash issue is forgetting to pay the electric bill once," I said. "This is 3 months of overdue house payments, late bills, and warnings you ignored." Brian's face tightened. "Watch yourself." I looked at him. "No, Brian, you watch yourself. You lost your job after lying about work expenses. And instead of telling your wife to stop pretending, you let her keep dressing up dead as success." The room went so quiet I could hear the refrigerator humming in the kitchen. Mom looked at Brian. "Is that true?" Brian did not answer. He stared at his wine glass. That was answer enough. Vanessa's voice cracked. "Ruby, stop!" "No, you wanted everyone to talk about children tonight. Let's talk about children." I pointed at the folder. I helped because Emma and Luke are innocent. I did not want them coming home to panic. Whispers. And locked doors because their parents cared more about appearances than honesty. Vanessa's eyes filled with tears. But they were not the tears she used at funerals or family gatherings. These were frightened tears. Exposed tears. "You're enjoying this," she whispered. I leaned closer. "No, I enjoyed watching Noah build Lego cities in my living room before this family taught him to fold himself smaller. I enjoyed hearing him sing off-key into a cereal spoon before Brian told him real boys speak louder. I enjoyed being a mother before every Sunday dinner turned into a trial where my son had to prove he was not broken." Mom started crying quietly. "Ruby." "We didn't know. You didn't ask." She flinched. "You saw my old car and thought struggle. You saw my small apartment and thought failure. You saw me without Daniel and decided I was incomplete." I swallowed, but my voice did not shake. "I am a senior loan officer. I make good money. My apartment is paid for. I have over $200,000 saved. Noah has a college fund. We are not drowning." Dad stared at me like I had spoken in another language. "But you never respected stability," I said. "You respected shine. Big house, nice car, matching Christmas photos, the performance of success." Vanessa wiped her cheeks with shaking fingers. "If you have that much, then help us. Please, you can fix this." There it was. Not sorry for Noah, not sorry for the words. Just help us. I looked at her for a long second. and the last soft place I had saved for my sister went still. "You called my son a mess," I said. "Over dessert, with a fork in your hand and a smile on your face." She shook her head. "I was upset. I didn't mean it." "Yes, you did." Dad stood. "Enough, both of you." "No," I said. "You do not get to call enough now. You sat here while she did it. You waited until I defended my child to find your voice." He looked down. I turned back to Vanessa. "Maybe if your perfect family was as perfect as you claim, you wouldn't have begged the sister you pity to cover your bills." Her mouth opened, but nothing came out. I tapped the folder once. "I am not asking for the money back. I gave it because of Emma and Luke, but I will not make another payment. You and Brian will call the lender. You will sell what you need to sell. You will stop lying to Mom and Dad, and you will not use my son as a place to dump your shame." Brian put his head in his hands. Vanessa's voice rose. "You're ruining us." "No," I said. "I am stepping out from under the lie you built on my back." Then I turned to Noah. He looked up at me, eyes wet, face pale. I walked to him and placed one hand on his shoulder. "You are not a mess," I said, loud enough for every person at that table to hear. "You are not half a family. You are not less because your dad died. You are kind. You are smart. You are loved. And if anyone in this room cannot see that, they do not deserve a seat in your life." Noah's lips trembled. Mom covered her face. I picked up my purse, then the folder. Vanessa reached for it, but I pulled it away. "No more hiding," I said. I took Noah's hand. Dad stepped toward the doorway. "If you walk out now, don't expect us to welcome you back." I looked at the dining room one last time. The candles, the plates, the beautiful table where my son had learned to disappear. Then I looked at my father. "I am not looking for a welcome in a house where my child has to survive dinner." Noah squeezed my hand, so I walked out with him, and this time, nobody at that table had the power to make me turn around. In the car, the silence hit me harder than the fight. My hands shook so badly I missed the ignition. The leather on the steering wheel felt cold under my palms. Outside, my parents' house glowed behind us. Every window warm and golden, like nothing ugly had just happened inside. I looked over at Noah. He was staring at his knees. "Honey," I said, my voice breaking, "I'm sorry. I should have stopped it a long time ago." He turned his head slowly. His eyes were red, but he was not crying anymore. "You stood up for me," he said. 5 words. That was all it took to undo me. I reached across the console and held his hand. "You are not what she said. You are not broken. You are not less because your dad isn't here." Noah swallowed. "So I'm not a mess." "No," I said. "You are the best thing in my life. And your dad would be so proud of you." The first tear slid down his cheek, quiet and clean, when we got home. Our apartment smelled like laundry soap and the vanilla candle Noah liked to light after school. It was small. It was ours. I ordered pizza, and 20 minutes later, Noah sat cross-legged on the rug, holding a hot slice with both hands, cheese stretching to his chin. At my parents' table, he had pushed his plate away. At home, he ate like a kid again. That was my victory. In the weeks that followed, Vanessa and Brian had to face their bills. They sold the car. They canceled the expensive lessons. They met with a financial counselor. Mom called 3 times before I answered. "If you want to see Noah," I told her, "you apologize to him first. Not to me, to him. And for once." I meant every word. That night, after Noah fell asleep on the couch, I stood in the quiet living room and looked at the folder on the coffee table. The corners were bent now. A cheesecake smudge marked the edge. It looked ordinary for something that had ended 4 years of swallowed pain. I slid it into the drawer and closed it. That folder was never my revenge. My revenge was watching my son breathe easier. It was hearing him laugh with pizza sauce on his chin. It was knowing he would never again have to earn love at a table built on judgment. Real family does not use a child's grief as a weapon. Real love does not demand silence from the person bleeding. Sometimes the most human revenge is not destroying anyone. It is refusing to protect their lie. If you have had to protect someone from your own family, share your story in the comments. Subscribe for the next one.